Hey, I'm And.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers, because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold? Stay tuned to find out as we chat to today's mystery guest.
Honey, you're my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows our mystery guest and the other doesn't. And today it's Beck's turn to discover the gold in our special guest, Jamie Smith. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Jamie.
Nice to meet you. Good to be here.
So what we usually do is I'll give Beck a little bit about you and then we throw her out of the room. I like the word throw.
Yeah.
I think maybe we might give the bit this time as well.
I'm just picturing that. I like the idea of flying out the door. Anyway.
Like some superhero.
Yeah, well, you're saying throw and it means airborne. So anyway.
Right, okay. So Jamie's 32.
Yes.
And we actually have something in common, which you may have discovered already, but we're both British.
Oh, there we go.
So he grew up in Hertfordshire, and I'm going to give you something extra, which I normally don't give.
What?
But he loves martial arts.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Which has probably thrown you completely off because he's dressed very smartly in a suit right now.
Yes.
A book of contradictions.
I guess we're going to find out more.
We will.
Yes.
So off you go.
All righty.
And we'll see you soon. So welcome, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Now, the reason that you are dressed so smartly is you've no doubt come from work. And this is kind of your work attire because you're a real estate agent.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in fact, my real estate agent.
Yeah.
And you've worked at Century 21 for 7 years. But really, that's quite a change from some of the professions you've had and the background in which you've grown up in. And so I know you've done lots of different jobs, one of which I believe is a sports coach.
Yep.
And you and a teacher, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you got expelled from school. And so to get expelled from school, then to becoming a teacher is a big turnaround. And this really seems to be kind of the theme of your life, that you've turned something that's bad that's happened in your life and you've turned it on its head and you've turned it around into a positive thing, which is your gold. But what I've loved about the fact you've got an honours as well in sports performance, and this really then led you to travel Europe coaching surfing.
Yeah.
I mean, you are living the Aussie dream.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, you know, like just working my way through life and just going down the wrong path and recognising that it's not a direction you want to go and turn it around and just not settle for second best, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing your story, particularly in Australia, because you were 22 when you moved here,
Yep.
had just 2 surfboards, a pair of boardies, and $800.
Yep.
And now you're a real estate agent, you're building a property portfolio and into the wealth development. Is that what you
that's
call
it.
it?
I think, you know, securing your financial future and all that sort of stuff growing up and in the council houses of England and, you know, never really appreciating what that meant. And probably for the first year or two working in real estate, I probably still didn't quite understand what it meant. And then to meet so many clients and people that were building their futures around real estate, you know, success leaves clues and you just listen and learn and continue to grow. So
yeah, wonderful. And so one of your mottos is no matter what cards you're dealt in life, it's how you play them that matters the most.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, you know, because depending on who you talk to, you know, people have different perspectives and things like that. And, you know, you seem to think that you need to live a certain way because that's the hand that you were dealt. And it doesn't need to be like that. You know, you can game the system if you like. And
your future's up to you, isn't it? You
100%. Yeah, you can take yourself to places you never thought imaginable. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what Beck pulls out, and we'll bring it back in. Were they playing any weird and random songs?
They were. So, oh, darling, oh.
So funny you say that, right? Because when Dara was small, that was a song. We took that song and we changed it, and I'm probably going to really embarrass my son now, aren't I? But we used to say, oh, Dara, your mummy loves you. Oh, Dara, your daddy does too.
Oh, that's so cute. Well, they're playing that downstairs at the moment. So.
Well, there you go. I'd be feeling all nostalgic because he's 20 now and no longer bouncing on my knee. In fact, if he did, I think he'd break it.
Oh, dear. Well, where shall we begin?
I'm an open book. I'm all yours.
Awesome. Okay, so you've come from the UK.
Yep.
And you like martial arts. Did you have to fight your way to Australia?
Ooh, really great question.
It's good that you put it that way. I guess, I guess figuratively and physically, yes, would be correct. So
martial arts did bring you to Australia?
Well, it kind of did. It was something which I did in my teenage years.
Yeah.
Kind of drifted away from the martial arts and went towards surfing whilst I was at university, and that was what sort of brought me to Australia. I was a professional lifeguard, surf coach.
Yeah.
So I worked across Europe. I lifeguarded in the UK, came over here supposedly for 6 months. And never left.
Still here.
So 10 years later, we're still here. So
Can I just say, I'm not surprised. Most UK people who come to Australia stay, don't you, Ange?
Yeah, well, that's true. Being a surf coach in the UK is not quite the same, is it?
Well, it's a bit different. It's a bit colder. So.
I was going to say, what surf beaches are in the UK?
Well, so I'm from Cornwall, which is southwest England. So people assume that the British beaches are all rocks and all that sort of stuff, but it's actually sandy beaches down there, so it is quite nice. But in the winter months it's definitely not a place that
be freezing.
Yeah, you'd be wearing a 5mm wetsuit, which is pretty much as thick as they come, with boots, gloves, a little hood on, and just trying to stay warm. And
at which point, not worth it, is
no,
it?
the year I decided to leave, it was one of the coldest winters on record.
Wow.
And on the actual coast, the water temperature was 8 degrees Celsius. So you can only imagine further out in the ocean how cold it was.
My
and I
goodness.
just went, no, this is crazy. I'm out of here. So.
Wow. So you did surf life saving through Europe as well?
Yeah, probably more so the UK was the lifeguarding, and then the surf coaching was in Europe.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd always go as sort of water safety and all that sort of stuff too. So
yeah. Oh, great. So then you found yourself in Australia.
Yeah.
Surfing.
Yep.
Yes.
I kind of threw you off with the martial arts,
Yeah.
haven't I?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. That was something I found came back to me a couple of years after being here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what part of the coast did you...
I landed at Alexandra Headland. So
yeah.
I remember I landed quite late, and I woke up at 5 a.m. and I'd built everything up in my head to be, just perfect. So I run down, and I think it was, I think it was August. So just coming out of winter.
Yeah.
I had a pair of boardies on. I had my surfboard. I ran down into the water, and I was like, oh, it's a bit fresh, bit fresh still. And that was when I realised that I'd come for the Australian winter, But but anyway, it wasn't too long.
The tail end of it.
Yeah.
Would have felt like your spring, maybe.
Oh, I was still living the dream. So it was all good.
You were in Australia at this
Absolutely,
point.
I'd made it.
You'd made it, yeah. Okay, so a couple of years later, you came back to martial arts. Is that right?
Yeah. So it was probably 2 or 3 years into being in Australia. I was personal training and stuff, and growing up in the UK, I did a lot of boxing, kickboxing, taekwondo, various different things there.
Yeah.
And when I was doing my personal training, I gravitated back towards doing a lot of boxing coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, it rekindled something inside of me. And I thought, I'm going to go and do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go and do mixed martial arts and, do the MMA stuff. And anyway, I started down the track of doing BJJ, and that was it. That's all she wrote. I was like, I'm not going to go and get punched in the face and do all these nasty things. I'd much rather do the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So that's been 7 or 8 years now, I think, of doing that. So
because that's more kind of like a wrestling type.
Yeah, it's grappling orientated.
Yeah.
So it moves away from the striking and all that sort of stuff, and it's certainly more of a self-defense martial art. I think it doesn't mean that the striking martial arts aren't self-defense as well. But,
Yeah.
you know, for me, being a smaller individual, I can go and wrestle with someone who's much bigger than me and be more technical, and
Take him out at the knees.
I can take him out.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But,
Slide along the ground and take him out.
Done.
The
Yeah.
leg
Yeah.
swipe.
That's
Sweet
it.
I've
leg.
seen Karate Kid.
Yeah. Wax on, wax off.
That's it.
So you teach that now, do you?
No. So, so that's something I do in my spare time.
Yeah.
So,
What do you do in your not spare time?
I'm a real estate agent.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I sell real estate for a living,
Okay.
and then I strangle people for fun. So,
Aren't they both the same thing?
well, yeah, I have to restrain myself.
It sounds like really good energy outlets
Yeah,
there.
yeah, that's it. You know, there's a lot of rejection in real estate sometimes, and
Oh, yeah.
you just go and deal with it on the mat. So it's
Did
all
you
good.
have anything to do with Angela's recent acquisition?
Well, we're helping
Well,
in that process. So we're selling Angela's house right now.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
so that's on the market currently, and then Damien, my principal, helped Angela along with the new house. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
Great. So how long have you been doing real estate for, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so real estate has been probably 6.5, 7 years for me now.
Yeah.
Kind of funny story how it came about, because I guess my academic background is certainly not real estate,
Yeah.
and I did not come to Australia to do real estate.
Right.
So,
What's your academic background?
so I've got an honours degree in sports performance and coaching.
Yes.
So I started studying quite young, so
Yeah.
probably from 16 I started studying sports and went on to university and stuff. And then sort of, I guess the transition for me was I was doing a lot of personal training and coaching, and I was doing a lot of sales stuff as well, like selling memberships and bits and bobs like that. And
Yeah.
at the time I'd known Damien at Century 21, and we went to an awards night, and I was there as a guest, and I had to borrow a 3-piece suit to go because it was a pretty fancy REIQ awards night. And I remember sitting there and seeing all the celebrations of all the success and all these great things. And I was like, I'd always had the worst opinion of real estate people, you know, growing up. And I was like, this is weird. You know, a lot of these people, there's a lot of ego involved and all that sort of stuff. As you'd imagine, it's a competitive industry.
Yeah.
And I went, you know what? Like, imagine if you could just do the right thing.
Yeah.
Be the right person.
Well, that's
in the right job.
refreshing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, I still left there. I didn't walk away from it going, I'm going to go into real estate. I came away and I went, these people,
Yeah.
you know, celebrating success, and just, I had the worst opinion possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I spoke to Damien about it, and, you know, he said, oh, no, it's like any industry, you know, like there's going to be good people and there's going to be not so good people. And
Yeah.
that was where I was like, oh, okay. And Damien seemed to me like a good person, you know. He'd been, I think at the awards, he won the REIQ Sales Agent of the Year for Queensland.
Yeah.
I think it was the second time he won it. So he was
Yeah.
obviously, you know, accomplished. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later I sent him a text message. I said, look, I'm thinking about doing real estate. What do you think? And he said, meet me at my house tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Right.
So
So
I-
were you inspired by this to?
A little bit,
get
yeah.
into
I
it,
guess growing up, people that have achieved success have got things to share, you know, and I just figured, well, there's this incredibly successful individual there. You know, why not reach out and see if there's an opportunity to work with them? So I showed up in my trackies and my beard, and I was like pretty rugged at the time. And he sits me down in his house and he said, right, give me your elevator pitch. And I went, well, first and foremost, I don't know anything about houses. Like,
Yeah.
and he just laughed. He was like, well, that's a good start, isn't it? I was like, well, you know,
You
I've
can be
been
taught.
yeah, well, I've been coaching and teaching for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, at the time, I think I was 25 or 26. And I was like, you know, I've got over a decade of working directly with people. And I think that communication and people skills is something that you can develop it over time. But
Yeah.
I think some people gel with it a lot more than what others do, you know. And that's why I thought, well, I've got the people sorted. I just need to learn the real estate. And I figured you're the guy that's going to do that for me. And
Yeah.
he said, okay, well, when can you start? And I was like, well, that was easy. But that
was a good line, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he will never forget that day. And, we've grown, like, he's my mentor, my best friend, like everything that comes with that. And I think we'll both remember that conversation forever. It's a funny day.
That's great. And so you've been with him now for 7 years?
Yeah, I've been with the business the entire time.
Yeah.
So you hear of real estate agents chopping and changing left, right and centre, but, I believe that you're only as good as the people that you work for.
Yes.
And he's invested in me. I'm invested in him.
Oh, you got your qualification now too.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
and when you say it should be done right, what is real estate done right in your mind?
Yeah, I think, there's this belief that, there's all these smoke and mirrors and all these things that need to happen to get the deal done and all that sort of stuff. And I've just found for me, particularly from the way that I grew up, it's much more about transparency and just call it as it is. There's no need to skirt around the obvious. Just address it head on. Yeah. It might not be comfortable sometimes, but if you do that, people can make plans accordingly.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've done from day one. And I think that's allowed me to achieve the success that I have in this industry. Yeah. And I think particularly, buying and selling real estate for the most part is one of the most stressful things people will do in their lifetime, the most significant thing they'll do in their lifetime almost. So they need that direction, they need that transparency, because it just makes things a lot easier. The minute you skirt around the corner or hide behind the bushes because you don't want to get in trouble, well, that's the
quickest way. What is it like dealing with customers? Because it is the most stressful time. They say it's the number one stress, isn't it? Like moving house.
And was it death, divorce and buying a house?
Yeah, and so something like that. And so hopefully they don't all combine in the same time.
So sometimes they do, don't they?
They do, yeah. So how is it dealing with clients sometimes?
Look, I think this is where my martial arts comes into it, because there's a lot of trial and error, right? So jiu-jitsu in particular, you've got to get something wrong to get something right. And that's where I think real estate is kind of the same in a way. Yeah. You never commit to something that you don't know about. If somebody has a question that you don't have an answer to, don't try and make it up, because it's only going to end badly for you. Yeah. So just be honest and say, look, I'll get back to you on that. I'll have a chat with this person, that person. But as with anything, you're always going to be dealing with ego. It just happens. And that's where obviously, people have this perception of what purchasing a house is like. My favorite one is when I'm dealing with people, it's the first time for them, first time selling, first time buying, because then you can get it right from the start. But, there are people out there that have bought several homes over their lifetime and feel that it has to be done a certain way. And you just got to give people the leeway to do that and be like, look, it is what it is. I'm a mediator between one client and another. So my job's to make it as stress less as possible. I'm not going to say stress free, because it's not stress free. But
what are some of the biggest obstacles you've come across?
The toughest ones I find are, when people are separating or divorcing, or if you're dealing with, people that are going through financial hardship. Those ones, people really heavily rely on you. Yeah. And I think for me, that's something that I've thrived on, is when somebody really needs your help. I'm there for you 100%. Yeah. Call me at 10 o'clock at night, I'm on the phone. It's no drama. Yeah. But, it's the ones that try to game the system a little bit. That's where I sort of, you just got to give people that opportunity and that leeway. But there's also boundaries there too that you need to sort of, I guess, put in place to avoid, I guess, letting people go too far down that road, because it just makes it hard. So we got to set expectations. So
it seems like more than just a job to you. So
yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I mean, it took me a long time to learn. Somebody said to me, Mel Husso's a friend of mine. She's recently moved to Spain. She said to me once that you are not your job. Like that was something which I went too far down the rabbit hole. And I was Jamie, the real estate agent. I wasn't Jamie, the person. Yeah. And that was where I almost burnt myself out, because I wasn't able to differentiate the two. I was taking work home with me. I was taking home to work with me, and it just became this big mess. So
what happened then? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I took a week off of work. It's funny, it's just a week, but in real estate terms, it's like a month. But, I just took some time to assess, and that's where the martial arts became more important to me, because I found when I was on the mat, that was something where, and the mat's obviously where you train, that was where I was the person. I was Jamie the person.
Yeah.
That was me. It was my authentic self, you know. And then when I'm in real estate, it's Jamie the real estate agent too, you know. So because martial arts for me was something I did from a kid, essentially, I think too often people grow older in life and sort of let go of who they were when they were a child, because they're like, I'm an adult now, I don't do that anymore. Yeah. But I think that's what keeps you going.
Do you think that's what martial arts was for you as a child? It was something you ran to, because it's like such a discipline, isn't it? And it actually can keep your life on track a little bit. Martial arts, is that something that was the case for you?
Definitely. I think growing up, so I was a bit of a troublemaker as a kid, as a teenager, a bit rebellious, getting myself up to mischief and stuff. And
Are you going to give us examples?
Yeah. So I was 15 and I got expelled from school.
Right.
So I went too far down one direction.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be the cool kid.
Yeah.
I wanted everybody to like me.
Yeah.
I never struggled at school. Like, I was always very switched on.
Yeah.
But I always played that person who was like, oh no, I'm just cool, I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah.
It led me into all sorts of trouble. And anyway, I got expelled from school.
Yeah.
And then all those people that I thought were cool and liked me just fizzled out. They just vanished.
Yeah.
And I carried on that path for, probably a year or two after the fact. And, I think the martial arts was something that gave me direction in life when I was a bit lost. I didn't know what to do with myself. Yeah. I was getting into trouble, fights at school and stuff like that. And I just found, you know what, I'm going to go and do martial arts, because if somebody that's bigger than me wants to beat me up, I want to be able to look after myself. You know, that was the thought process. But the skill itself is just a physical activity. But I think it's the mindset that it gives you and the discipline, like you said, it sort of just gives you some direction in life and just keeps you on track.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's something that you can keep falling back on when you need to.
Yeah, that's it. I think between the ages of 15 and 19, that was when I was getting very heavily into the martial arts, and all my friends were going out partying, getting up to this and that. And, it was funny, the mistakes that I made at school, people were then making when they were going to university. Yeah. Oh, well, I'd already made those mistakes when I was so young. I was like, well, I'm not falling into that hole again. Yeah. And that was where, obviously, getting expelled from school, I had to spend some time just to make it, because I had no formal qualifications, no English, no science, no maths, none of that.
Yeah,
so everyone said, you're going to be a statistic. You're never going to amount to anything. You're just going to end up being one of those other people that stuffed up and it's not going anywhere. And
did that make you more determined?
Well,
was it like one of those turning points where you go, that's not true, I'm going to rise up? And
yeah, well, the rebellious streak in me sort of said, oh, you know what, whatever. Who cares what you think? Yeah. And then it sat with me for a little bit and I went, you know what? Geez, like that could be what life is going to be for me. Like, I don't want to grow up like that. I don't want to be on the dole and have nothing. I grew up in council houses, right? So I grew up in council estates, and people were trying to make a living through breaking into sheds and selling drugs and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way, with the potential that I knew I had, I was going to do that. I was like, I've got to get out of here. Like, this is just not for me.
So it was like a wake-up call?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It took a while for it to set in and realize, but yeah, I did that. And then I went to college, and it was funny because I was going to join the army. That was my thing. My dad was in the army. So I was like, I'm going to join the army. Yeah. But he said to me, you've got to get some qualifications before you go in, because if you come out and you've got no qualifications, you're a security guard for life. Like, that's basically what you amount to. And I was like, well, don't want that necessarily. So even though I got my security qualification anyway. But, so I went to college, and they said, oh, look, if you want to do that, you're better off doing this different subject, which was public services at the time. And I was like, no, I want to do sports. Yeah. Because sports going to get me fit. Like, that's what I want. So I had to go back a year to go forwards because I had no formal qualifications. Yeah. So I did the very first entry-level course that they did in sports, which was the first diploma. And all the kids that were on the course were in the same boat as me. Like, they'd all been kicked out of school or were troublemakers. And I honestly don't think I spoke to anybody for 12 months. Because I was that focused. I was like, these people, I'm not like them. I need to do what I've got to do just to move on. So I did that. And then that led on to my national diploma. Yeah. Half the kids from the previous course didn't make it. but then half of the other ones did. So we went on to the national diploma, which was 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I started applying for university. I was like, you know, I don't know if I want to join the army now. You know, like I feel like I could go and do academics.
Yeah.
I applied for the University of Hertfordshire at the time to do psychology.
Yeah.
Because I was always fascinated by the human psyche and how people tick and what they do. Yeah. And so I got accepted. There was 1,500 applicants and 200 places.
Yeah.
So for somebody with no formal qualifications to get into one of the top universities in the country, it was a big deal. And then I decided not to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just didn't want to go up to London. I was from the country, like Cornwall, which is all beaches and surfing and all that sort of stuff. And I just couldn't imagine living in the big smoke and, working in a clinic. So I went and did a foundation degree in marine sports science, which was obviously what then drove my surfing and my lifeguarding and my coaching. Mm-hmm. Did various little trips across, Southwest France, Spain, Portugal, did all the surfing stuff. And then I went and did my honours in sports performance and coaching. Yeah. And, it was an interesting one because from when I started to when I finished, it was 6 years. And I knew, like, I'd invested so much. And I was, like, walking in for my final exam, my last ever day of university. And I'd hung so much on it. And I walked out at the end and I just felt nothing. I was like, this is crazy. Like, I thought I was going to have this profound revelation of what was going to happen next, and I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea. I think I was 21, 22. Yeah. And I graduated university, and then I was like, went and did some surfing, surf coaching, lifeguarding, all that sort of stuff, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to Australia. My dad had emigrated, I think 5 or 6 years prior to me coming over, and I thought, I'm going to go and spend some time with my dad. I hadn't seen him for a while. Yeah. So I got a 6-month trip, a return trip, and flew out here, and that's all she wrote.
Never look back.
Never look back. So from that moment on, I just...
Well, as a surfer, and then you come to Alex Heads, of all places. And for those of you that are not local people, Alex Heads is just the most stunning. Yeah. And it's a great surf beach as well, isn't
Absolutely.
it? It's just like the landscape is amazing there. Yeah. So that would sell you.
Well, that was it. I mean, if you talk about profound feelings, like when I walked out of that final exam hall, I felt nothing. Yeah. But the morning of waking up in Australia for the first time and running down the beach, coming out of winter just in boardies and my surfboard, jumping into the ocean, which was admittedly cold. Like if I'd go in there now after 10 years of being here, I'd be like, oh, it's a bit fresh. Yeah. But that was it. But
you came with nothing, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Like I was in the intro, I said you literally landed with 2 surfboards and $800.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't know what was going to happen. Everybody that I told I was moving to Australia, they said, oh, what are you doing? Yeah. I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, I have no idea.
Wow.
Just figure it out. It's all good. That survival instinct, I think, was really what drove me for a long time.
So did you have accommodation? Or?
Yeah, my dad was here.
Of course.
I lived with Dad for a little while. Yeah. I was very independent growing up. Dad wasn't around because my parents separated when I was really young. Yeah. And it was quite funny because obviously, he was a grown man. Yes. I was a growing man. I was 22, 23 at the time. I was a world beater. I was like, you know what? I've got it figured out. Yeah. And Dad was having a go at me for bringing sand into the apartment, sand into the car. And I'm like, but I make a living surf coaching and lifeguarding. Yeah. So I'm going to bring Sam with me, Yeah. And it was quite funny. We just clashed at the time.
Because you would have been getting to know each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. Because my parents separated when I was very young. I spent a couple of years with my dad and, I'd very much grown up with my mum and I was very independent there. Mum gave me a lot of leeway just to live my life. Yeah. It sort of made me...
It sounds like you're probably quite headstrong as well, like in your own mind.
Probably. Yeah. I look back on it now, like 10 years later. Yeah. Probably too much so. Like I thought I had everything figured out. Yeah, I got kicked out of school. I'd fixed it. Yeah. I was doing this and I was doing that. And
I think you'll come to appreciate it when the time comes for you to have your own family and you see yourself looking back at you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. And that was the thing. People were giving me advice on things. I'm like, you don't know. You don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's funny now, like I look at it, and me and my dad, you know, we'll catch up and talk about things, and we just have a laugh about it, you know. Like when I ran away from home when I was younger, and stole a bike at the time from school, and you know, it was a pretty serious thing at the time, but we just laugh about it now.
Yeah, wow.
You know, the things you do when you're a teenager, and you know, just rebel against the system. And
Well, you've had a very colourful life and you've achieved a lot. What would you say is your greatest achievement?
It's an interesting one, you know, because I guess when I first came here, real estate's very much, especially as an agent, you know, it's very target driven. It's about numbers, figures. You do this, you do that, and you're constantly in a state of growing. Even now, with the success that I've achieved in real estate, I feel that even just getting to Australia in the first place was the biggest achievement for me, just because...
It's a great achievement.
Well, yeah, I think it was interesting. You know, I look back on it now. I had some coaching with a real estate mentor, and, you know, we did a goal setting session, and I've always struggled with forward thinking. You know, like if I think of where I was 5 or 10 years ago, I never would have dreamed up where I am now.
Yeah, right.
And we had to set some goals, and I really struggled with that, you know. And he just said, well, tell me about that. And what we figured was that I'd spent my entire life running from what I didn't want.
Right.
Almost to the point of where I got to a stage where I looked back and I went, oh my goodness, like, where am I? It was like Forrest Gump, you know, he's run across the country and then just stops all of a sudden, goes, where am I?
Yeah, right.
You know, and that was the thing. And it was probably 5 years ago. I looked back on that now, and I've really transitioned my thinking to think the world's not this hostile place. You know, you can have anything and everything you possibly could want.
Yeah.
You just need opportunity and a will to move forwards, because that's all you've got. And that was something which I think was a big change. So I think that for me was an achievement as well.
Yeah.
There've been various external things that have happened. You know, I've bought 2 houses. Obviously, you know, Jiu Jitsu, progressing in the rank system in that too. Yeah. But I think it's probably more internal for me. I've always struggled with, you know, oh my God, you did this. Oh my God, you've got that. And I'm like, but it's what I've got inside, which you don't see, I think, is the most powerful thing.
So what are you now running towards?
Don't know. Still figuring it out day to day.
I love that shift of focus, though. Instead of running away from something, actually shift now. I'm aiming for something.
Yeah, well, it's like any perspective. If you spend so much time thinking, I don't want that, and you become so focused on that thing you don't want, but then you sort of put your blinkers on to what else is possible. Yeah. You know, and I guess for me now, I'm no longer worried about what's in the past. You know, it's in the past. It's fine. I've learned a lot from it, and I'll continue to learn things from it. But I think now my eyes are open. My perspective is broad, and whatever is out there, the world is yours. You know.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's great.
So you ready for some gold?
Yes, we are. Well, I can see that you've had great determination and a strong will since childhood. And I think it's that strength of character it's taken you on places that may have got you into trouble as well, but it's that same strength of character that's turned you around and just switched on your mind to say, I don't want to live like that. I want better. And I think it takes a lot of determination and endurance and course correcting to then go through all your studies and make those decisions that have brought you to the place that you are today. And I think that's brilliant. I think you're very determined. I think you're very focused. I think everything you do, you'll do very well, and probably are doing very well because of the state of mind that you're in. So I think the rest of your life, you're going to just keep being successful.
Yeah. And that's, I think, you know, success is a funny thing, right? Because you just see it as this great positive thing, but failure is a part of that too. And it's, you know, too many people, I see it all the time. People have this big upswing of you know, positivity that happens. Yeah. And then when any adversity comes in, it sort of derails the thing. Yeah. But I think failure and you know, obstacles is part of success. You know, it will take you to where you want to be.
Well, it was your obstacles that made you rethink how
Yeah.
you were doing things, wasn't it?
Definitely.
And got you onto the right
I just love
course.
how, you were this kid that got expelled from school. That put a stigma on you. You lost all
Yeah.
your friends.
Yeah.
But actually, you then went on to get your honours.
Yeah.
And study for a considerable, and continue to study and gain accolades. And I think sometimes when things like that happen, you get expelled, it can put a label on you that your life is, well, this is where your life is headed.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter who we are. We actually can change that. We can change it. And it takes us to be determined, focused, and sometimes actually probably the fact that your friends dumped you at that stage was a good thing for you, because you're able then to redesign your life and go in a different direction.
I like how you chose whether to accept things upon you or not.
Yeah.
So when you were expelled, you're like, well, no, I'm not going to let people say that I'm that person, because I'm not. I'm going to go and show them and do the degrees, and not even just to show them, but yourself. It's like, no, I'm going to be successful. I'm not going to allow myself to stay at that. I'm going to keep moving forward.
And that's where I think self-awareness is probably a big thing. I learned that quite early on. I read a lot of books, again, growing up in a council house in England. This is quite interesting. I grew up in a pretty horrible environment, and it wasn't until the year that I left, and I don't know if you know this, but the actual towns that I was from in the UK was designated as a poverty zone in the UK by the European Union. They appointed it as a poverty zone. Yeah. And I just went, oh, duh, like you've only just figured that out. And I remember I used to sit at home, I'd lock myself in my bedroom, it was freezing cold. We didn't have any money to put, heating on because it was too expensive. Yeah. I'd just sit there reading books, endlessly reading books. Yeah. Just reading about success, and there are people that have achieved unimaginable things, but they all have these little tendencies which carry them through, and it's not that they had any idea what was possible, it's just that they didn't let go. They just kept moving forwards, because it's you're moving forwards or you're going backwards. And the interesting thing, there's a chap who swam around the UK, Ross Edgley, and he had a quote that he said that he was incredibly naive to think that it was easy, but he was incredibly stubborn to give up. And I think there's a lot that can be said in that. For me, I figured, oh yeah, I've got this, I'm fine. Yeah. But then when the going got tough, I was like, well, I don't want everybody to see me fail, so I'm just gonna have to keep going. And that's the thing. You just keep moving forward.
That's the key, isn't it?
It's such an inspiration, Jamie. That's such a great story, and your life is a great example, I'm sure, for many people. So,
well, at least if one person listens to this and makes a positive change, well, it's all worth it, Yeah,
that's it.
Thanks so much for being with us. We've really enjoyed having you, getting to know you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for being
and
on our
show.
show.
Know not to unleash a can of whoop-ass on you if you don't sell my house.
No, we'll get there. That's it.
He's determined.
And there's some intimidation.
No leg swiping here.
Sign the contract. Sign the contract.
That's it.
Honey, you're my sugar.
I really like Jamie. I really like his story. He's learned so much from his life. I love how self-reflective he's been.
Yeah. I love that you brought your real estate agent.
I know.
Well done.
We just meet these people everywhere, don't we?
It's like, while you're here, can you sell my house and come on the podcast? But it was great to meet Jamie. And I love how he's made decisions in life to do better. Say being expelled from school, for instance, he wasn't just going to stay in that status quo of being a dropout. He was like, no, I'm going to step up and not be that person.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite difficult because a lot of people don't come back from things like that. They get stereotyped something. Like being expelled from school would stereotype you as a bit of a troublemaker. And, some people can be of the mentality, well, if I'm going to be a troublemaker, well, I may as well live up to the name. And, they get into all sorts of trouble. Yeah. And he did say he had a period of time where he did play into that role, but came to a point where he had to make a decision. My future is in my hands. It's not really what other people think of me or the experiences that I've had or maybe some of the disappointments or the challenges I've had in my upbringing. My future is up to me. And
That's
it is.
right.
It's up to us, isn't it? And
Yeah.
we can decide to change that.
And it really takes courage. Like, he had to have the courage to then go and enroll in a course and get his degrees in the health and fitness, and then move to Australia. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I know. Like, as I said, when he moved here, he only had $800 and 2 surfboards.
Yeah.
And now to be sort of building a career in real estate and doing really well, owns a couple of homes, you know, and really building his life and like the wealth creation. He talks a lot about really focusing on what are the keys of successful people.
Yeah.
And he's learning from other people and drawing from their experience and implementing that into his life.
Yeah.
And it's really
While
making a
still-
difference, hey?
Yeah, and while still staying true to himself.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
wants to do it better, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's such an inspiring story, and he's got so much gold. Like some of the nuggets he was sharing is just great wisdom that he has from his life, and he's only 32. Did I say he's in his 30s? Yeah.
No, he's going to be successful because he's just got the right frame of mind, doesn't he?
But if he doesn't sell my house, you know, as I said,
That's it.
I'm not going to be taking it up with him because he's pretty.
He's good at martial arts.
He is.
It's okay. You don't have to sell it. Yes, you do. No, it was good.
Yeah, but you feel confident. You're in good hands, and I really love the team actually at Century 21. They're a great bunch of people, and we've been with them for various home purchases, sales, and whatever over a number of years, and always felt very well looked after and cared for by
That's
them.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, on that point,
Yes.
I would love what he said about Damien, who's the principal at Century 21. Said he doesn't take on rookies. Yeah. But he must have seen something in Jamie that made him take a chance on him.
Yes.
And there are some times where you just need to take a chance on somebody, right? And it will be the very thing that they need to change their life around.
Yeah.
And it's made a big difference to Jamie's life and his career because of that.
That's right.
So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a poem. Honey, you're my sugar.